A very warm welcome to our session Art and Technology, Creating the Unexpected. A warm welcome especially to our guests tonight, Thierry-Maxime Loriot, Michel Lemieux and Andrea Montembo. I will properly introduce you in some minutes. My name is Franziska Stöhr. I'm a curator at Kunsthalle Munich and will moderate this evening. Now I would like to thank first of all the people who made this event possible. First of all, our guests who accepted our invitation to join us for this event, and the Québec government office in Germany for their initiative and support, namely Nicole Kofu and Katharina Banz. Thank you so much for our great collaboration. As you all probably know, the Kunsthalle Munich has been showing a fantastic exhibition about the work of Thierry Mugler. Actually, today is our last day due to a new lockdown here in Munich. And in case you haven't seen the exhibition, don't worry, because on our website we offer a virtual 360-degree walkthrough, so you can view it anytime, and it will be also online after the exhibition ends officially on Sunday. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our guests. Maybe you can quickly say hello so that you appear on the screens of everybody. First of all, Thierry-Maxime Loriot, after working more than 10 years in fashion industry between New York, Milan, and Paris with leading photographers, brands, and magazines, he curated various renditions of the globally touring exhibition, The Fashion World of Jean-Paul Gaultier, from the sidewalk to the catwalk. The show traveled to 12 cities in 5 years and drew more than 2 million visitors, breaking records for a fashion exhibition. He has curated internationally, and I want to mention a few more projects: Love is Love, Wedding Bliss for All, à la Jean-Paul Gaultier, Peter Lindbergh, A Different Vision on Fashion Photography, Victor and Rolf, Fashion Artists. Last but not least, he is of course the curator of the wonderful exhibition Thierry Mugler Couturissime, which had its world premiere at the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts in 2019 and was presented after at Kunsthalle Rotterdam at the moment here in Munich. And if you haven't seen it for real, it will be presented in Paris in fall 2021. So in case we can travel again, that's a very good chance to see the really fantastic dresses in original. Thierry also collaborates with musicians, among them the Quebec singer Isabelle Boulay on her latest album. He did the creative direction of Rufus Wainwright's world tour, All the Poses. And in 2019, Thierry received the Vanguard Award, Canadian Arts and Fashion Award, for the important contribution he made to arts and fashion industry. Welcome, Thierry.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Michel Lemieux, he's our second guest. A very warm welcome. As far back as 1982, Michel's onstage creations were already fusions of music, images, performance, and projection. And ever since, he has defied classification. He's a creator, a set designer, a director, composer, performer, and videographer, and continues to be at the forefront of performing arts. With a production company, Lemieux Pilon 4D Art, which he founded together with Victor Pilon in the 1990s, he devises singular shows in which new technologies intensify the audience's sensory and emotional experience. The duo Masterful integrates theater and film, dance, poetry, visual arts, music, and sound to create unique theatrical events and worlds. Their work has also been widely shown in museums, in theaters, operas, as well as on festivals. Projects to mention are Dreamscape, Icare, La Belle et la Bête, Shakespeare, The Tempest, and Norman, a tribute to Canadian filmmaker Norman McLaren. They collaborated also with Cirque du Soleil 4 times, among others Toulouse, The First Flight. And for the Mugler exhibition, they have created a really extraordinary installation, The Disappearance of Lady Macbeth. And we are going to talk about that a little later. Welcome. Last but not least, Andrea Montembo. He is the creator of Rodeo FX for the Mugler exhibition. He is an award-winning director, senior flame artist, luster colorist, and VFX supervisor. André established the advertising department at Rodeo FX and went on to deliver notable campaigns such as Via Rail's 40th anniversary spot and earned an Emmy nomination for the NBC Super Bowl opening, a VES nomination for the Osheaga Art and Music Festival live event installation, and an Iris nomination for the Best Visual Effects for the film Two Lovers and a Bear. As part of Rodeo FX team, Andre constantly works to improve creative techniques and technology. He uses his extensive experience to perfect VFX processes and his editorial skills for delivering original content. And for the Mugler exhibition, Rodeo FX has created an installation for the space Act 8 Metamorphosen that we are going to have a closer look in some minutes. So welcome to you all.
Thank you.
And as a start, we now will have a look at a very short video from the Mugler exhibition so that you all get an impression of the whole show before we have a look at Michel's and Andre's installation. I will now share my screen.
What
is love?
How do you say astral projection? Delicious, lovely. How do you say gorgeous? How do you say
I think I know.
nuclear? Groovy. How do you say delicious? Lovely, delectable, divine. How do you say nuclear? Oh la la, c'est groovy, Mugler. Parlez-vous faux français? Oui, j'attends, joli, Mugler. Bonjour, Camille, je m'entends pas, j'ai déjà pété. Oh, je vais te. Oh là là, je vais ça, je vais te Mugler. Je vais te capachon. How do you say Danilo? How do you say delicious? Du joli, du lovely, défilé.
So this maybe gives you a good impression if you hadn't had the chance yet to visit the exhibition. And my first question goes to Thierry. Would you please tell us a little bit about the idea, how it came up to invite Michel and André to participate in the exhibition, and how this also relates to Thierry Mugler's work?
But I think the first thing to explain is how difficult it was to do this exhibition on Thierry Mugler first, because many museums around the world since 25 years, I would say, have asked Mr. Mugler to do an exhibition about his work from New York to Paris to London, and he always refused because for him, he was not ready to open his archives, and he was still, doing costumes for Cirque du Soleil and doing things, even if the fashion house was now in the hands of someone else who was also doing a line that is still very popular. He was not ready for this, and I was quite surprised actually when I got a phone call asking me if it's something I would consider to do, because he had seen not the exhibition of Jean-Paul Gaultier, but he had seen the Victor and Rolf and the Peter Lindbergh exhibition that was at Kunsthalle Munich, actually. And so for me, it was a big surprise. And the first time I saw the archives, there's so many different universes that were to be explored that my first goal, because I didn't want to do, I'm not very nostalgic the way I present exhibitions. So for me, what is really important is more to show the universe of a creator, and also that, that the person, the artist, when he comes to see the exhibition, that he feels home and that he feels that it's a nice tribute to him, that it's not like a funeral exhibition. So for me, it was really the most important thing to consider while doing this exhibition. And I don't want to try to recreate what had been done in the past. For example, to try to recreate the set of Macbeth in 1985 and to recreate a fashion show he had done in 96 and all this. For me, it's really important to put him in context now, and that people can see how timeless and impactful his work was. So from that moment, the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts was interested to produce the show and to tour it, and of course to have it travel to the common collaborators of the museum of my exhibition, because I had worked with, it's my third exhibition now at the Kunsthalle, and I work with the curator there, Nerina Santos. It was really fantastic, and also at the Kunsthalle in Rotterdam. So it's friends and collaborators that I'm used to work with, and it's fun to develop these projects when you know that they can travel, because it's not like a painting or a photo exhibition where you only put in crates the frames and then you hang them on the wall. You know, you have the work of Michel, which is a challenge, and the work of André, which is another challenge, and you have to adapt it for each different venues, because it's not always the same size of the galleries and everything. But the main reason why we asked Michel and Rodeo FX to collaborate with us for this exhibition, it's really because I thought if Mugler was still designing in 2020, but in 2018 when we were working on the project, I thought, who would he be fascinated by the work of, and who would he want to collaborate with? And for me, it's really important to showcase and to feature people from Quebec, because we have a lot of different talents in movies. You know the work of Xavier Dolan and Denis Villeneuve and Rodeo FX, who do all the movies in Hollywood. Michel does so many things, and we have really a lot of incredible talents. And for me, I thought that these people, it would be people Mugler would be fascinated and would want to collaborate with, and really to put his vision forward rather than to celebrate something from the past and try to recreate something that is more like a tribute or a funeral exhibition, which is always the big nightmare of any designer to have, or artist. So it was quite easy, I would say. You know, it's different challenge, but I think they will explain it better, because it was really fun. If it was to be done again, I would do it again with my eyes closed.
That's actually the best sign if you say you would do it again. And maybe that's really a good moment to have a look at a next video. I would like to start with the piece by Michel, and I show you a short documentary. It's just 2 minutes, and then another video which gives you an impression about the installation. So I will share again my screen.
Oh, hello, ladies and gentlemen, mademoiselle, quelque chose.
En 2014, Nathalie Bondil nous a invités. Nathalie, qui connaît nos spectacles, a dit « Il y a beaucoup d'art visuel dans vos spectacles. Pourquoi ne viendriez-vous pas au musée présenter cet art visuel-là? » Nathalie m'a demandé de créer une œuvre dans l'exposition consacrée à Mugler. Thierry Mugler, dans les années 80, a créé les costumes d'une production de Macbeth. Et les costumes sont absolument extraordinaires. Et comment faire revivre un peu ces costumes-là? La fameuse scène où elle se réveille la nuit, somnambule, et pour la première fois, cette femme qui avait une très grande assurance, qui a pris tous les moyens pour devenir reine, qui a fait tuer des gens, en fait, pour devenir reine, tout d'un coup, elle est un peu envahie par ses remords. Mais la reine, derrière, est toujours pas loin. Alors, c'est une espèce de combat. On a comme une vision de Mugler très extravagant, toujours très proche de la sexualité, choquante, etc., avec des costumes de robots, des costumes en latex, des trucs très extravagants. Et là, tout d'un coup, de commencer avec une salle qui dit non, Mugler, c'est ça, mais c'est aussi quelque chose de sérieux. Et je trouve ça génial. Ça va comme déstabiliser les spectateurs de commencer avec une salle gothique, noire, sérieuse, à propos d'une pièce de Shakespeare.
So that was the first one where Michel explains a little bit, and you've seen some behind the scenes images. And I will now show you a very short piece also about images from the installation so that you get an idea of this fantastic piece. So I hope you kind of got an impression of this really, really fantastic work. If you ever have the chance to see it in Paris for real, it's really absolutely worth it. And I'd like to ask you, Michel, can you talk a little bit more about the idea behind the installation and how it works technically?
So the idea came from Thierry, of course, and Nathalie Bonzil, who directed the Museum of Fine Arts of Montreal at that point, of inviting me. But I didn't have, at first, I didn't have a lot of reference with fashion or high fashion. It was not really part of my world. And a meeting with Thierry, of course, he's so charming and so talented. So a lot of idea came just with short time, actually. And he mentioned those costumes that Thierry Mugler made in the beginning of the 80s, 84, I think, for the Macbeth. A piece in Avignon Festival, a big theater festival in France. And then I found something to grab on, a kind of anchor for me to, okay, I come from performing art, I can relate to Shakespeare, I can relate to Macbeth, I can relate to Lady Macbeth, because of course Mugler is a world of woman, there's a lot of woman, there's a kind of, as I said in the video, a kind of sexual aggression. There's definitely a digression in all the work of Mugler. So I think the piece of Lady Macbeth, and in Montreal it was opening the exhibition, and I don't know in Munich, in Paris it's going to be at the end. So it's moving, but in Montreal was to open with something so contrasty. It was about the cliche we make of what is Mugler. If I know about Mugler, I have this kind of archetype of this kind of thing, and suddenly to open or to put in an exhibition a piece which show a totally different angle of what is Mugler, which is much more dark. Actually, I think all Mugler is very dark for me, but it's not very, it's very dark and urban, and I love it. But I think the darkness in Macbeth is expressed differently. It's expressed through theater. And with this piece, I wanted to address this darkness And I didn't want to go into really, even if it's about costume that were used for a theater show, I didn't want to go in theater. So that's why I transposed with the choreographer Julie Perron from Québec. We transposed it into a contemporary dance piece, a 5-minute piece, around this famous scene of Lady Macbeth. And one little story interesting about this piece, you know, creation is alive. For me, you don't do the concept of a creation and then you direct it. You have a first idea of the concept, and while directing it, the things are changing always. I think it's nice to adapt yourself to reality. And the beginning of this piece was, we were supposed to have this big golden dress that you see at the beginning. It's an immense dress. And Mugler told me an interesting story about, he said for him in Macbeth, it's like the costumes of the kings and of the queen are oversized. They are really big because power is crumbling the human, crumbling yourself. It's difficult to wear power. Power is too big for you. That's why this dress is huge. And what he wanted with Lady Macbeth is after she's been a queen and now she's not anymore, she becomes a kind of larva that come out of this golden dress. And so that's why the dress she has, the little, it's kind of greenish, like a larva. It's really the idea. So we were supposed to have this big, beautiful dress, and with the illusionist technique, a technique called Pepper's Ghost, I was supposed to make this Lady Macbeth going out of this real object, this artifact, the big golden dress. But a couple months before the exhibition opened, we received the news from the museum in Paris, in France, where the big dress was, and they told us it's impossible. The dress is too fragile. It's gonna die if we send it to you, so you cannot have the dress anymore. So remember, Thierry was like big drama, but talking with Thierry and trying to find new ideas. I had earlier this idea of fire. I really want to incorporate fire. Of course, Lady Macbeth, it's about the blood, the imaginary blood there is on her hand. So at a point, Thierry said, why don't we make the dress, the golden dress, appear virtually, and then we burn it, and then you make the scene. And it was the idea that saved the day. And so in France, they digitalized, they made a lot of photography of the dress, all angles, maybe 100 photography. And then they recomposed a 3D model of the dress. So we have the dress in 3D. So in the museum, you kind of have the illusion that the golden dress is there. And then we have the joy of burning an incredibly expensive costume from Thierry Mugler, and we burn it every 5 minutes. It's burning, and for me it was a gesture, brutal gesture, but and we were quite anxious to see the reaction of Thierry Mugler himself. I met him before the piece, and he told me about the costume, but then the day we had to show him, you know, the piece and the exhibition for Thierry, well, we were quite nervous about it. And actually, he was totally in it. It's a bit, I think, Thierry, you said it, probably Mugler would be very active creatively right now. He would probably ask me to do something with him, ask you, Thierry, and ask André, because his reaction was very spontaneously enthusiastic. The only thing he told me, at a point there is crows, because they're talking about crows and Macbeth. So there's crows coming, and he said to me, the crows are not loud enough. They should be aggressive. I should be aggressed by the crows. So I said, okay, that's the only thing you have to say. Thank you. And the idea of making a contrast, I think I love, and I think Thierry as well, that's why we work together on this. I think inviting people to something, like in this case, an exhibition, and then surprising them with their own preconception of what they're going to see. And I think this really healthy to do that. It creates it provoke your thoughts to be fluid, to be in liquid, to be in movement.
Yeah. So
what Michel is not telling us actually is that when Mugler saw for the first time the hologram, the whole video, he had a standing ovation just for him by Mugler and a big hug. He was very, very, very touched, because for him, it's clothes that he prepared with the atelier from Comédie Française in 1985. But after the show was played in Avignon and then in Paris in the fall of 1985, he had never seen the costumes again. So for him, it was something really from the past. It was just this little project in his life that really had a big impact, because you find all the codes in the work of Mugler in that piece, with the muscles, with the armors, with the big shoulders. All the codes are there. And the big golden dress, as Michel explained, I went to the Centre National du Costume de Scène in Moulins, and the dress is fantastic. It's 2.50 meters, and there is this big armor under in metal that we had to recreate. So what you see on stage when it's burnt, it's a replica of the actual shape of the dress. But just to transport it, because it's made with linen that is covered with silicone that is mixed with gold paint. You had like pieces of just moving the dress, you have pieces falling apart all the time. So it's very, very fragile. So Michel, I really loved his reaction when I said it's not possible to get the dress, and then it was about making a plan B. But I like to have plan B, plan C, plan D, and they're all good. So thank you.
yeah, perfect. And sometimes the most innovative things come out of these problematic situations. Michel, maybe you could very briefly explain to all our public who don't know how this hologram works, just very, very briefly how the technique works, please.
Okay, holography in this scope, in this size, doesn't exist yet. So it's a simulation of holography. I've done it for stage, like a big stage for theaters. Now it's like a reduction a bit. It's all based on an illusionist technique of 1850. In London, an illusionist called Dr. Pepper invented this technique with glass at that point. And some people are saying that this technique actually comes from Middle Age. It was used in Middle Age. It's a technique of reflection. So you don't see the projections. There's suspended the screen and we project on it. You see the reflection. And we don't use glass, of course, these days. We use plastics or reflective. It's like a big, big, big plate of glass, and you see the reflection in it. So it's very old illusionists, very theatrically it's in the tradition of theater. Illusion is in the tradition of theater, and cinema came from that. And we have to remember that cinema, the Frères Lumière had this incredible installation called a film projector and film cameras. And they projected in Paris, during intervals. There was an illusionist show. It was not Dr. Pepper, it was another illusionist called Houdin. Robert Houdin was a great, the ancestor of Houdini, and the Frères Lumière were presenting sessions, like 5 minutes of a movie between a magic show. So in these days, magic show were a kind of R&D showroom of what is really technological and how, and actually the installation, we can call it multimedia installation, the Frères Lumière invented, actually become an art form, cinema and movies, and it became from really a gadget, an illusionist gadget, it became this incredible art form. So Dr. Pepper in London developed this technique in 1850, a bit before the Frères Lumière, of these illusions of hologram. And I found it really nice to mix very high-end technology with these traditional theatrical ideas of illusions.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much for this explanation. And I think it's a good moment to have a look at the second installation that we would like to talk about today. Again, I will show you 2 videos so that you all get an impression. So I will start the video now.
Oh, hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Le mandat était de créer une pièce immersive qui fait toute la salle métamorphose du Musée des Beaux-Arts. Et donc, il fallait comme construire une image qui se scinde entre une forêt, entre un océan et une savane. Et donc, tout ça, évidemment, est dans les cordes de Rodeo FX qui fait des décors numériques depuis belle lurette. En fait, on part de photographie et de vidéo, qu'on mélange tout ça avec aussi du travail de l'animation 3D. Il y a aussi des défis techniques au niveau de l'animation. On ne doit pas sentir de coupure. C'est assez difficile de déplacer des animaux, des insectes ou d'un endroit à l'autre, d'un point A à un point B, sans sentir de boucle. Sans compter aussi que la grandeur en pixels de tout ce travail-là a été aussi assez un bon défi.
So this was the first one, and I'm going to show you a second one, which is actually a mock-up of our installation in Munich, which kind of gives you a view behind the scenes. And I will share my screen now again. It should be black for you all again. Perfect.
Envision me now on the runway as I, how do you say,
What
astral
is
project?
love?
How do you say, astral projection? Delicious, lovely. How do you say, gorgeous? How do you say,
I think I know.
nuclear? Groovy. How do you say, delicious? Lovely, delectable, divine. How do you say, nuclear? Oh la la, the groovy, Mugler.
So this was the installation in Munich. And first of all, I would like to ask Thierry again, because staging spectacular, a mix between reality and fiction, and also this theme of metamorphosis are, of course, very important themes for Thierry Mugler as well. So with the installation of Rodeo FX, it's really an artwork that devises an own world for the creations of Mugler. When you conceptualized this metamorphosis space, was it important for you to work with the methods by Mugler as well?
But it's a mix of different things, because I'm zero with technology. I just learned last year how to scan a document, to give you an idea. So I'm really zero with technology. So it's better to work with pros like Rodeo FX, Andrea and Michel, and people who know technology. But you know, the universe of Mugler, it's really a fantasy world where you have these women that are half beast and half fish, and then they become these birds, and it's really a fantasy world. So for me, there was this this aspect that I had no clue how to achieve, but to create this fantasy world where it's an illusion, but it's impossible to be underwater, and how to group it all together, because in this section you have the underwater group, you have the insects, you have the animals, you have the beasts. So how to group them together and to create a link together. So this was my challenge to Rodeo FX, which I think they achieved quite well to group this all together with their tools and with their imagination. Also, for me, it was just like hey, what about doing like this for us? The base of the inspiration was actually a Spielberg movie called Artificial Intelligence, where there's this little I think it's with Jude Law, I think, and the little boy that was in a Sixth Sense, and he's dropped in a really weird forest in the future, and I wanted to create this kind of forest of the future, and I just let them work, and then I was just driving them nuts, going to the office and saying, "Oh, can you add more fish there?" And then the bird going like this, and we're like, "Yes, sure," always. So, but Andre was really the master behind it with his team, so he can tell us way more than I can on this.
Perfect. So you found a fantastic partner for this
Yes,
installation.
yes.
Andre, Rodeo FX is very well known for all its special effects in movies, in television, in advertisement. What was for you the biggest challenge while creating this installation for an exhibition?
Well, it was mostly in two parts, the challenge, because it's when it comes with Thierry-Maxime, it's more than a challenge, it's challenges is. So the first one was, of course, the art direction, how to express, the insect, the Mugler collection of insects mixed with fish, and a whole of his, couture, haute couture. Visually, I mean, I know Thierry-Maxime has a very good and bright vision of it all, but this was one part to express it visually, and the second part was, of course, the installation, the number of projectors versus the resolution of the files versus the loop, because we wanted to have something that was infinite, but we couldn't produce an infinite video. We had to come to an agreement in terms of how long would be that loop. And that challenge with the technical was, of course, you see movement in the piece. It's a fixed camera looking at the 360 immersive scene, but the scene is live. So we had to make sure that when it comes back to frame one, everybody's at first position. But for 2 minutes, it was moving as a scene would be, but then it had to come back to the first position so it could loop again. And of course, technically, we had 8 projectors in the scene, so all videos has to be, stitchable. So, when you look at the overall file that we had to produce for this exhibition, it was something like 14.6K video. So, technically, it was very challenging in a way. And of course, as you see in the video, we're not doing this. It's a group effort. We saw, Fred Saint-Arnaud in there, which was the lead matte painter, that really, took all the technical part, under his wing. And so those were the two most, challenge for Rodeo and the team.
What's really impressive, if you walk through the space, that you realize at some point the projectors are in the middle of the space, but you don't see any projections on the mannequins. Could you tell our audience how this works?
Of course, yeah. The projectors, it's all done. It's all projected on the walls. So there was another challenge for us, is that we didn't want to pollute Mugler's work, the mannequins, the models. So we had to come up with a way to mat out the image, so it was not affected on the models. So it was a software that allowed us to mask the video. So on the scene, on the actual venue, the visual could not be affected on the models. So technically, it's basically projectors. And with the help of that software, we were able to skew the image because the projectors were on the ceiling and were projecting on the wall. So the top of the image was closer to the projector when the bottom of the image was further. So we had to skew the images and stitch them together so it blends in a 360 way. So that's how we could do it. And of course, you know, the exhibition was born in Montreal at the Musée des Beaux-Arts, and then had to travel to Rotterdam, now in Munich. It's going in Paris. Another challenge of it all was it has to be, it has to adapt to every room because Munich's room is different than the Montreal one. So we had to make sure while doing the conception, the technical part of it, and the art part of it, that it would be a place where we could magically stitch the image so the 360 immersive image would still, work.
Yeah, and this has been done really amazingly well. It's really fantastic. I did a last walkthrough today, and another thing that I love so much about this installation is when you realize that you have these different scenes, and at some point you realize there are birds, there's the sound of water, and in a very special way, this all goes so well together that you don't really see, you know, worlds clashing together. It's really one universe, and I think that's really the very brilliant thing about this installation as well. I think
there's a lot of movie references also in the,
Yes.
because we wanted to have a moon, and I was very fascinated by the moon in the movie Melancholia from Lars von Trier, and I really wanted to have a moon, and I think it's you, Andre, who said, oh, maybe the moon could, you know, go from a quarter to half moon to full moon. I was like, oh, if you can do it, I'm taking it. And there's a lot of little details. It's almost like art piece, this 360 video screen, because when you look at different elements, where, for example, you know, you have one dress that is like a jellyfish, and they added in the water some jellyfish close to the dress, and the moon is behind the mohawk always of one. But it's tiny little elements like this that takes weeks to make. It's really, I don't know how many hours they spent in total to create this, but it's like Michel, it's a never-ending job. All the tweaking they can do is infinite. Yeah.
Well, it was very fluid. I mean, to tell you the truth, Thierry-Maxime, we had fun to do that. It was transparent from you guys. The feedback was almost instantly. It was really, I mean, on our end, it was the canvas. We knew we had to take all the measures. We knew a lot of things. I mean, Sandra came up with the 3D model of the room, so we already knew we had this canvas that was already easy to do. And like you said, Thierry-Maxime, the stitches between the different insects and fish underwater and in the forest, we had to do this merge from one scene to another. On the left side, you have Thierry Mugler's fish dresses, and suddenly, subtly, you go move into the forest where you have this insect collection of Mugler. So this transition with the mannequins, with the models, was another big challenge. But we knew, you know, from the museum and from Mugler, where were the mannequins supposed to be. The mise en scène from Thierry-Maxime was already precise and easy to manage. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we had fun doing this all.
That's a very important thing, of course. I think it's a good moment to broaden our discussion a little bit. And I'd like to ask Michel, very early on in your work, you integrated new technologies in your performances, be it the combination of different media, but also representations of technique. Like, for example, in your famous piece, Solid Salade from 1984, you had a robot called Oscar appearing. And at the same time, their movies have been published in the 80s, like Terminator or Blade Runner, who rather draw like a dystopic image of the relationship between humans and technique. And I think you've always voted for a more humorous way. So what would you say is the difference between the 1980s and today in the way you use technique and think about it?
I think I use technology more, not only in a humoristic way. Sometimes, yeah, the robot Oscar was really a joke, but it was a real robot. Really, really, it was every day someone has to repair the robot. It was a real robot back in the 80s. But I think for me, working with technology is more to enhance our humanity. I think it's more the better case. I think we are human trying to communicate more with each other and maybe using technology to communicate more. But we don't want to become robots ourselves. We want to become better humans. So let's try to use this technology to become better humans, and maybe to repair the thing we did badly in our world. What was the question again? Sorry.
Yeah, but I think that perfectly answers this already.
Okay, perfect.
What was how do you think about the technique back then and today? But I think that really...
But I think in the 80s we were very naive. It was the beginning of computers. When I started with slides, projections, and movie projectors and real films, you know. And I saw through my practice, I saw really the evolution of technology, and I used it. I used a lot of high-end technology, but a lot of, I wouldn't say low-end, but I would say consumer technology. All those, at a point, it was possible for an artist to work with a computer, because before that it was too expensive. So I saw all this evolution, and I think it's still a tool. We use it differently right now because we have more power. We have artificial intelligence that will be more and more included in the work everywhere. But I think we should be more careful today than we were in the 80s. 80s was the discovery. Right now we have to. If we incorporate, for example, in art, if we incorporate technology, it has to be transparent. It has to become transparent. It has to be totally mastered. So I don't see the technology. It's not interesting. What I want to see is the expression, the humanity, what's going out of the piece. And if you use technology, fine. But if you put your technology in front of what I'm seeing, for me, I think we're right now at the beginning of maturity using digital technology in art. So let's do real art form piece, using it as a tool, actually.
Thank you so much. Andrea, I would also like to ask you, because of course, all these special effects that have made so much possible, like really creating whole worlds. And Michel also mentioned artificial intelligence, and of course we are all talking at the moment about how much creative part do humans, how much part is the technology. How would you describe the relationship between the own human imagination and the technical means? Because I think this is a really interesting relationship between what we can imagine, what we have available, and at some point technology gives us new means, but at some points we also invent new means to realize what we imagine. So how would you describe this relationship, maybe also relating to your own practice?
Well, of course, it's a great question. Of course, in cinema and in feature film, mostly, we always want to, differ from the previous production or previous effects. And every director or any production designer wants to have something new on screen and the new effects. And it happens that technology is evolving as well as the idea. Both of them are in the same, advancing pattern. The ideas are getting weirder and greater, and the computer, the machine learning, the AI, all of that is getting simpler and more efficient. So, if I can relate this to the actual, metamorphosis act that we did for Mugler, it's a bit of, it's all techniques that are used in that piece. It's pictures, it's 3D models, it's Shutterstock, it's moving images, a river, a little river in the forest, Méduse in the ocean comes from Shutterstock, and pictures, and all of this combined together, where the machine learning, we can tell it a simple expression. We can talk to the computer now. Let's say we say, okay, this is the first position of the animation, and in 2 minutes, I want that animation to come back to the first position, a bit like you would do on the set, like if you were a director. When you do another take, you go, okay, everybody at the first position. Now you can tell simple commands to computers. You just type them down on the terminal, and you can talk to the computer. So you can give him simple comments that he's going to apply, like a simulation. FX simulation is the best example of machine learning, where you can have expressions. You can express yourself to the computer. You can, after a take that the computer rendered overnight, you can say to the computer, hey, that was too fast, make it slower, or this part here has to be higher, or this is faster. So the machine, and then the computer will, simulate another pass. So it was basically the same thing for our act, and technology is only getting, further and further. I don't know which of the two is getting more advanced. Is it the creativity, the brain, the ideas, or the machines? We're becoming at the crosspath where, oh man, okay, we have to be, we can ask a lot to the machine now.
So we'll see how far we come in the next years, but I'm very curious about that. And then have a question for Thierry. Looking at exhibitions and their design, digital media really open up new possibilities, like for art, for the creation of atmospheres, for the support of the narration of an exhibition, but also like with the golden dress, for the presentation of works that cannot be exhibited for real anymore. Here in Germany, there is an institute at the Karlsruhe Institute for Technology, and they have a project which is called E-Installation, Telepresence, and VR-based documentation of media art. And the project really deals with a problem that works from time and space-based media art require, like constant maintenance, and it gets more and more complicated to exhibit them and keep them properly operating. So they propose to reconstruct these pieces virtually so that you can experience them with VR goggles. And until now, this seems not to be really an option for exhibitions, because we all work with originals, and that's really the most important thing for exhibitions. Do you think this might change in the future?
I hope. I think it's important to think outside of the box, because there's a lot of things that should end up in the museum, or that even we have a trace and that we know that existed but disappeared, and we want to show them or include them in an exhibition or in a book. And there's other ways to make them alive. For example, the golden dress is really a good example. But for any other elements, I think it's nice to be able to open the doors to other ways to showcase an object or anything. It's very, of course, you have all the conservation issues. You have also the access to haute couture, which is already difficult at first, just to have access to the maison de couture, because they're just so small. But also we have to think, there's a lot of virtual reality, 3D, the goggles and all these things that now are more and more developed. I saw one exhibition like this in London, and I think it was a disaster. And it's not, I think now with COVID, it's going to be more and more complicated, because just, it's something that people touch, that is in the face of everyone. People won't want to have that type of technology. So I think the work of Michel and André, it's, you know, something that you don't need to touch. I think it's more, the future is more in this than into these goggles and special lenses, because to tell you the truth on a very personal note, I am blind from this eye, so I don't only see in 2 dimensions. And the 3D goggles and all these things, it doesn't work for me. So for me, there's no interest of developing it because I cannot see in 3 dimensions. But I think there's many ways to develop other ways to feature the art, and you know, even from reproduction for photography, we live with it very often, because to show original prints of photographers, you know, if it's with too much light, you know, it shouldn't be exhibited for too many hours, too many weeks. So now, you know, it's more and more frequent to see photography exhibitions only with exhibition prints. And I think it has the same value. It's about showing the work, showing a story. You know, now we have to deal, museum have to fight against Netflix and against giants of television, and you know, we have to entertain for the same price. We have to bring people inside the door, the walls of a museum. So you know, you really have to create a fantastic scenography, and you know, to advertise it. You know, it's very difficult to finance these projects. You know, it's mostly privately financed, these exhibitions like this, or with sponsors or people who believe in developing that kind of art and give visibility to these artists. And I think it's really important to support them. So thank you to everyone who attend today. If you came to see the exhibition and spread the word and supported it, thank you, because it's because of you that we're able to make projects like this.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very valid and important point. And I think also what you say about the virtual reality, there are a lot of people who say all these completely immersive worlds, maybe that's not the future, but more the augmented reality, where you really bring together, you know, the own analog world and the digital world. So that's why I also love so much Michel's work, because it's really bringing together reality, and we don't immerse ourselves completely in another world, but we also, with André's installation, we absolutely find ourselves in the real world, but we are, you know, kind of meeting another world. And I think that is something that also relates to our daily life in a way, because we live both in digital and analog worlds. And yeah, so I absolutely agree with you. We'll have to think about new ways and new techniques to make amazing exhibitions, so that all people would like to come to our exhibitions. And looking at the time, I have many questions for you, but I would like to ask Katerina and Nicole if there are some questions from the chat. Maybe we would like to start with this one and then open also up to video questions.
Yes, many thanks, Franziska. At the moment, we don't have a question, but maybe they are coming. First of all, I want to thank the Kunsthalle and thank you, Franziska, and our guests from Quebec on behalf of the Quebec Government Office in Munich and in Berlin. Ganz herzlichen Dank an die Kunsthalle München. Un grand merci à nos invités du Québec pour l'exposition et pour être avec nous ce soir et de discuter là de toutes ces thématiques vraiment très, très intéressantes. Donc, un grand merci, ganz herzlichen Dank. Yeah, I'm looking at the chat. No questions at the moment, but I have several ones. So if you want, I can start with one. Yes, we have seen that new technologies are influencing art in terms of creation, presentation, reception, and also distribution. And so I think that the topic that we're discussing today is really important for all of us. My question was to all of you. Do you think that new technologies have an influence on the storytelling itself, on the elaboration of a narrative for an exhibition, for example? Is it changing the process, the creative, the artistic process in itself? Question for Thierry-Maxime, but of course also for the others.
I think I will start, but I think Michel and André will have a point of view because, you know, to create an exhibition like this, I would say it's like doing a movie or doing a play. It's really a casting of who you collaborate with. You know, it's not because I know them or because it's because, you know, they belong, like Michel's work belonged to the Mugler exhibition in that context, and it was the most appropriate person to, you know, it's a dream to have him in the exhibition. Same thing with Rodeo FX, who don't normally do exhibitions, or another artist that is from Berlin, also Philipp Fürhofer, who did the two first Robots Room, who's from Germany. You know, I saw his work, and his work really worked with the universe of Mugler and with what, you know, we could explore together. So I think it's really about a collaboration also. That's really important to you know, Michel and André, they're experts in their own field. So it's all, I have everything to gain actually to listen to them, maybe give them some ideas, but it's about an exchange. It's a creative exchange. And that's what makes a project popular or work, is when you feel that it's been nourished on all sides and it's just become this incredible thing. And I feel that for Mugler, what they did, it's beyond anything I could have expected or dreamed of, because it feels that it belongs to the universe of Mugler now, you know.
Thank you.
I think that this, sorry.
No, please, Nicole, I wanted to say, to add up, and thank you, of course, for having us in this session for sure, and Katarina and you, and thank you for that. But like you were saying, Thierry-Maxime, yes, and to answer your question, Nicole, it's the mise en scène and the story will always stay, whatever the medium, whatever the technology. The story is about. It's an excuse for bits and pieces and electronic and device, because, you know, we were inspired by Mugler's dresses when we create that piece. So it all comes from the installation. It all comes from, you know, the core of the story. So that's how we were inspired to do the whole thing. And without it, you know, we're saying it's like a theater piece. We can have a mixed reality and frontal projection and all the device and the gizmos that you like. But at the end of the day, it's a story. You want to be touched. You want to feel an experience. You want to be immersed. And that's always on my end, on what I say is always going to lead, and it's always going to be the first and foremost important thing.
But to answer your question about technology, I think we are all of us really in contact with an imaginary world which is very close to us, but we kind of forget about it. It's our dreams. Every night, each of us dream about the length of a feature film. Every night, we direct our own feature film. Often I'm the star of my own feature film. Sometimes it's boring film. Sometimes it's very adventurous, but this dream life that we kind of forget is really, when we awake, is really part of our life. And for me, augmented reality give us the possibility of adding pieces of dreams into reality, and that's for me, Lady Macbeth piece is really an augmented reality piece without glasses. It uses other technical illusions, but it's the same result. It's really augmented reality. I recently, since the last year, directed a different VR movie, really VR for so. Unfortunately, Thierry will not be able to enjoy it. Maybe if you close one eye, you might be. So I believe really in the VR world, because when I go to see a movie in a movie theater, everything is dark, everything is made so I can concentrate on this thing. It's a kind of ritual to go to the movie theater. It's a kind of ritual to put this goggle, if you have good goggles. if you own it yourself, millions of people have Googles at home right now, so you can receive a Netflix movie, you can receive Oculus movie, and you can enjoy. I don't know if you saw this great piece I saw it last week, and I'm going to finish on that. Carnegie Arena. Carnegie Arena is a piece by Inarritu, this incredible Mexican film director, where you put your glasses and you wear really barefoot in reality and to sand, and it's really uncomfortable and it's cold, and you for 10 minutes you're a migrant on in a desert somewhere between Mexico and United States, and you really live something that we saw in movies. It was touching in movies, you know. There's a scene in the movie Babel from the same director, which is about the same. It's really touching to see it in a movie, but when you're there and it's really surrounding you and you're part of it, then it becomes another level of involvement. So I think VR is going to be a kind of possibility for future cinema. And I think AR, this idea of having very simple glass like that, everybody has sunglasses, they will have VR and AR possibility in a couple of years. And I think for artists, it's really good virgin territory to explore all those AR. And I think it's nice to mix reality to virtuality. It reminds us that we are being of awake being, but we are also dreaming beings. Voilà.
Merci beaucoup. Yeah, perhaps I can also ask a question. Personally, I'm interested why Thierry Mugler has such a strong link to Quebec. So he worked with Cirque du Soleil, Céline Dion, and then he called you Thierry-Maxime. Was it a coincidence, or is there a special connection between Mugler and Quebec?
But I think it's funny because first time I met Mugler, I said, I have to thank you because Americans can pronounce my first name well because of you, because otherwise they always call me Cherry, or another word that means when you're sick, because of the way they pronounce it. And I think it's just a coincidence. Actually, he thought I was French because of my name, which is not very common in Quebec. I would say Loriot. It's more common in Germany, I would say Loriot. But no, it's all a coincidence with Cirque du Soleil and all of this. But also, there's a very strong creative presence in Quebec, I would say. From, we have our own cinema, we have our own literature, we have our own theater that is. We are a circus, and many creators are from Quebec, and we're such a small province, but it's often exported. So maybe that's why it just goes everywhere. Just like Madonna also works with a lot of people from Quebec by coincidence, but it's just the way it is. And even Rodeo FX has an office in Munich also. So that's the Quebec invasion, maybe. I would say.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Andrea, you would like to add something?
No, I mean, Thierry is absolutely right. We have an office in Munich as well as in LA, and one in Quebec City. It's 2-hour drive from Montreal, and yeah, now we're heading for London now.
Invasion continues. Are there any questions from the audience?
Yes, you were raising the question of the relevance of the original artwork, Franziska, in the discussion, and I wanted to hear our guests on this question and on this topic. Do you think that in the digital age, art via these new technologies and techniques are becoming like a mass product, and is that positive or negative? What are the associated challenges, but also opportunities in the context of giving the art market, the art sector, like a democratic process? These technologies, what do you think about that? Or you're more pending for the negative, the positive side? Hearing you, Thierry-Maxime, I was feeling that you were putting forward the positive effects, but yeah, I think that this discussion is going on concerning the original artworks, yes, and how they are treated, accepted, and distributed also all over the world.
It's a very long discussion we can have. You know, it's also a point of view of art historian, I would say, and I just see now that you know, Franziska and Nerina are there, and I think it would be interesting to have their point of view also on this. But there's different sensibilities, I would say, because for me, the opportunity, I think, of doing an exhibition, it's really to give access to the inaccessible to visitors, and I think it's something that more and more will be difficult, because mostly in fashion, I would say, you know, once I heard and I thought it's very true, you know, it's easier to see a Picasso anywhere in any museum in the world, because they all have either a drawing, a sketch, ink, painting, a sculpture, a mobile, anything from Picasso in any museum in the world. But for example, to see a haute couture dress from Thierry Mugler, no one can see that. So it's really about this idea, you know, even for photography, it's very rare to see real photography art prints, because people don't realize the difficulty of using these images in a context. Now, I'm really diverting from your question, but it's important for visitors to understand this, because when, for example, you see photograph of Madonna on the wall of the exhibition, you have to ask more or less 9 people, you know, from the agent to the photographer to the lawyer to the record label to the photographer agent, the star, everybody, and everybody has to say yes, because if one says no, then you're completely blocked. And when we opened the exhibition, I did the installation by Zoom, which was a shame, but I've been able to go in October. But in between, you know, they make all this effort. It's a fantastic team at the Kunsthalle, and they work so hard to make this exhibition. They had to find a way also to make it accessible. So they came up with this idea of doing a virtual tour. But the virtual tour, it's not something easy to do, and it's very costly also to produce. So, but it's another way also to showcase artworks, and I think it's, in a way, I think it's fantastic, because someone in Bali or in Melbourne or in Hong Kong or in Mumbai or anywhere can see and have access to it. And I think it's this question of giving access to culture is very important now, more than this idea of copyrights. And I think more and more visual artists and photographers and artists, you know, we had to ask all the photographers to give permission to be featured in the virtual tour. And I think it's really the key to give access to culture, is to have these people who are on board and say, yes, please do it, and it's fine. And, you know, now with internet, everything is available. Or I think you have to be straightforward, but also fair enough in the way you do the usage. Of course, you don't give away a high resolution image to anyone on the internet, but I think this idea to give access and to find new ways to give access to a museum, even when it's closed, or even in the pandemic, you know, even here now on Québec TV, they showcased a play by Robert Lepage on TV on a Friday night. It's like they used to do that in the 1960s and 70s, but in 2021, it was wow. And people watched it. So I think it's fantastic how actually the pandemic helped to give more access to culture.
I'd like to add that I absolutely agree with you, Thierry. And I think if we look back a little bit to the beginning of video art, for example, this was really a movement which was supposed to be very democratic. So the idea was to send tapes all over the world. And that's also the reason why there was no market in the beginning for video art. And then it kind of started when it became more possible to also present video art in a good way, that artists created, you know, like an edition of 5 pieces. And I think today we are at a very good point where artists, for example, like Björn Mehlhus in Germany or Julian Rosefeld, for example, they really put up their whole work on their website, so you can see it in a low resolution. So the accessibility is very, very good. And on the other hand, of course, they also need to work with the market. So they have also editions of their works. But I think if these both ways are possible, then it is really great, because of course they also have to finance their art, they have to sell it, but at the same time they make it accessible. And also what you said about the good sides of this pandemic, and we also have to see what we've already learned in this last year. I mean, probably 1 year ago, nobody would have suggested, hey, let's do an online discussion. We also would have tried to bring you all to Munich. But I think in these times, we really can create things on a more spontaneous level. And this has found a very new acceptance. So I think there are a lot of positive things about the digitalization, but at the same time, as you say, Thierry, sometimes it gets totally difficult to get all the rights. So this is something that sometimes really makes it hard, but I think on the other hand, it has made a lot of things possible. If there are no questions from the audience, I would very much like to ask our 3 guests a last question, because as you know, our panel is named Art and Technology Creating the Unexpected. And we really have talked a lot about unexpected results in the Mugler exhibition today. But I would ask you if you can tell us what was your most creating the unexpected moment in your years of working. It's maybe a difficult one, but I'd like to hear your answer.
So, okay, I will begin then. I mean, in the whole process, artistically, for this immersive act for Couturissime, it was the selection of the paint on the wall that was a really creative process. Because, you know, you saw the scene, it travels from underwater to a forest. So from a cinematic point of view, the contrasts are not the same when you look at a scene with fishes underwater and deep in the forest. And even looking at the big giant moon that doesn't move from the savannah. It's not the same, you know, cinematographic approach. So we have to make sure that our visual projected on the walls would have good blacks, because like Michel said previously, when you go to a cinema, you are immersed in darkness and you have the experience. And of course, we didn't want to, you know, be over the actual venue, which were Mugler's costume. So we wanted to be an addition to the whole experience, but we wanted the black to be blacks. And so we had tested the walls of and we painted the wall of the museum, I don't know how many times, with 30 black, 70 white to 70 black, 30 white. And we did stripes and we have projectors and we tested it until we found the right balance that I'm going to keep secret here. The right amount of black because it's a gray paint. I mean, it's not a black paint because it would absorb all the light. It's not a white paint because there would be no blacks. So that paint on the wall had to be the perfect amount of black and whites. But that's just a small detail. But for the whole experience to work and for it to travel in Munich and in Rotterdam and in Paris, that paint, that recipe is traveling as well.
Thank you so much. What about you?
I want to do the recipe of that gray. We made a lot of tests in Cirque du Soleil about projecting on gray, and there's this gray called Cirque du Soleil gray. It's really like,
I think
the challenge
it might be the same color, Michel. No, I mean close.
Oh, it might be very close, but I'm looking for your recipe might be better. I think the challenge are with technology. You know, every kind of instruments you play. If you play violin, for example, you're a musician. You should master your instrument, so you will not hear the instrument. You will hear the expression. Technology is a kind of a slippery violin because, or slippery piano, because you play it and it's evolving as you play on it. It's already upgrading. It's already the possibility you have more notes to the piano. Suddenly you have 2 keyboards and so it's to master technology, you really have to keep focus. I think I think it's a quality we have to develop more and more, focusing on things, because the field of possibilities is so wide, so large with technology that you can lose yourself into it. So what is the intention of it? And I think the intention of the exhibition Thierry created was really clear. The intention of this piece, André, you did very clear. As I think somebody I really admire, Albert Einstein. You know this guy? Albert Einstein said one time something like, we live in an era of profusion of means, so many ways to do and to communicate and to be together. So a profusion of means, but a confusion of intention. And he said that maybe 50 years ago, but I think it's really relevant now to say it again. We have so many ways to communicate. What's the purpose of it? What is the intention behind all of that? And I think that's what we have to focus on it. More we have technology, more we have to focus on the intention behind it.
I think, can you hear me? Yeah. I think one unconscious but very conscious goal I have when I do exhibitions. I don't know why, but I always take into account the visitors a lot, and also the new generation. And I really hope, when they see the work of Michel, the work of André, the work of Philippe, the work of Mugler, an image on a wall, that it can, because when I was a kid, I come from a very conservative family. Both my parents were lawyers, very not artsy at all, and it was their worst nightmare that I could become an artist. So I just went around it to go on the other side. And I think for a young generation, it's really important to showcase also around these universes what you can do. There's so many ways that you can touch the art world by being into you can be a computer nerd but end up doing things for the art world, or even some fantastic Las Vegas show, or you can love to do hair and become a hairstylist for a great photographer. So I just hope that these exhibitions will still exist, which I'm not really convinced how the museum will keep the pace with these big production shows, because the Mugler exhibition, we travel, it's almost like a big Rolling Stones concert. We have all these crates and it goes into the plane cargo. It's 14 tons of material that we have to travel every time, and dozens and dozens, and it's more than 100 crates I think we have to travel. So I really hope that, just for this, it will keep on traveling and be inspiring also to anyone. I always think of people, let's say, they won't be interested in the fashion, but it's beyond the fashion. They can see a music video and be attracted to it, or it can remember. I really believe that the museum really have to have a democratic approach in the way they present their exhibitions, and they attract visitors, to have young people come to the exhibitions, but also to inspire them for their work and, you know, develop something artistic. I think it's very nurturing, I think, to be exposed to different types of art.
Thank you so much. I think this was really like a perfect final wording. And thank you so much, all our guests. Thank you so much, Thierry-Maxime Loriot, Michel Lemieux, and Andrea Montembo.
With
Thank
pleasure.
you, Katarina and Nicole, for hosting our chat and for contributing to the discussion. And thank you so much, all of you who took part today in this discussion. And if you would like to see it again, we will put it on our website since we recorded this session today. And I wish you all the best for the next week. Stay healthy, and I hope that we can meet very soon in maybe our next exhibition. We will open an exhibition about the Dutch artist Erwin Olaf in the middle of May. So if you come to Munich, you're more than welcome to join us there in the exhibition. Thank you so much and have a nice evening.